Hello again, welcome back to Harry's Jeti Clinic. This is episode 2, or if you like, version 2, of having independent throttles for a twin-engined aircraft. I said in episode 1 that one of the ideas was, rather than a separate slider that you could switch to, was to use a 3-position switch to switch between the throttle stick controlling the left engine only, or the right engine only, or both engines together. And that's the one we're going to have a look at in this episode. Let's just adjust the camera a little bit so we get better view there. Okie doke. I have already set up my 3-position switch, and you can set it up to be left engine, right engine, both, but I've set it up for both in the middle position because I thought perhaps that's the more practical method of switching between them. So if you want to get from left engine to both, you don't have to go through right engine. If you want to go from both to left, you don't have to go through right engine. So anyway, I've also set up some little voice files which I created and downloaded from www.rc-thoughts.com and assigned it to the switch, which is going to help because you can get a bit lost trying to program up all your switch positions and stuff. So here we go.
Left engine. Both engines. Right engine. Both engines.
Okay. And what's the setup? Well, I'm still using the same memory, this basic setup that we had in the previous video. If we look in here into model, basic properties are the same, still just one engine count. Function assignment, if you remember, we set up T1, T2. I've still got T slider in there, but I think we can ignore it for a moment. And T1 and T2 were assigned to output 1, in other words, the throttle channel. I've removed their assignment because we'll be reassigning those to the logic switches that do the work. Okie dokie. And the servo assignment is still the same as last time, so that we can easily see it on the servo monitor. There's what the original inbuilt Jeti throttle is doing, and here's what T1 and T2, our actual servos, will be doing. Remember, we will not be plugging an actual servo into throttle 1, and thus you can move it out to a much higher number that's unused if you need to free up that actual socket on the receiver. But of course, if you do so, then the outputs that we are going to be assigning have to match whatever you've moved the throttle to. Okie doke. Let's go back to our functions assignment. We'll assign T1 to logic switch 1. Proportional with a center, that's good. And we'll assign T2 to, can you guess? Yes, logic switch 2. Was it proportional and center? Yes, it is. Okay. Let's go and make our logic switches. L1, L1A. Okay, it's going to be the left-hand engine. The Jeti output numbering convention is left to right. So for my little brain, it's easy just to stick to that. So T1, throttle 1, will be the left-hand engine. T2 for me will be the right-hand engine. So logic switch 1 for left-hand engine. I can't be bothered labeling it. So we'll just go straight to enable. Come down here. And the control 1 will be the output from the throttle channel. Again, before throttle, here we go. See if I move the stick, if I adjust the trims, if I apply the throttle lock, it all works. Lovely, that's what we're after. I don't want that one, I want a proper proportional control, so it's this one. There we go. And we want it to be a linear output, so it will actually output a full range of numbers here. Yep. And come on down from there. Control 2 now is going to be the switch for selecting things. And let's think about it. The left-hand engine needs to be on in 2 of the 3 positions of the switch. It needs to be on in this position.
Left engine.
And it needs to be on in this position.
Both engines.
But it needs to be off.
Right engine.
There.
Both engines.
So I'm going to take a stab at which we want to move it. I'm going to put it in the mid position, which is both engines. I'll activate this and I'll move it to right engine.
Right engine.
Excellent. At the moment now, the logic switch would come on when I've switched right engine, and it would be off at both engines and left engine. But I want this to be for the left engine and both engines, so I press rev. Lovely. So at the moment we're in right-hand engine, we want this to be on at both engines and left engine.
Both engines.
On.
Left engine.
On. Lovely. And the condition, very important, will be and. Okay, so now let's look at it. I'm in the...
Both engines. Left engine.
Okay, so left engine, the throttle works. The trims work. The throttle cut works. I switch to...
Both engines.
The throttle works. Throttle cut works. Trim works. I switch to the right engine. Remember, this is the control for the left engine.
Right engine.
And it's now locked at -100. In other words, it's locked in the throttle cut position, which of course is not what you want. Probably you want it to stay at idle. We'll come back to that. Lovely. The logic switch 2 is just pretty much the same, except of course we're going to enable it for the right-hand engine. So once again, it's going to be the channel, throttle channel. We need it proportional. So proportional and centered are switched on because they're highlighted. Take that. It needs to be linear so that we get a true varying output. And control 2. Now, of course, we want this the other way around compared to
both engines.
The left engine switch. This is the right engine switch, so I'm going to put the switch in the middle position, which is both engines, and I'm going to move it, once I activate the field, I'm going to move it to the left engine position, because it does that. Reverse it. So now, remember, this is control for the right-hand engine. It's off here.
Both engines.
On.
Right engine.
Lovely.
Both engines.
Come down, say and, say OK to this. Now here's the output from our logic switches. At the moment we're in the both engines condition. The throttle stick works, throttle lock works, and trim works. Very important that you can adjust the trim because it's the throttle low trim, and it will still be just 100 at the top end because it's not affecting there. Okay, right. Let's switch to left engine only works.
Left engine.
See, that's still working. Throttle lock works. Trim works. The right-hand engine is locked at the throttle lock position. Don't worry, see, it will come to that. Both engines, work. Right-hand engine only. There, we're getting somewhere. Go back to both engines. Now, let's look at the actual servo output. Prove it. We're in both engines. Here we are. Left is number 5, right is number 7. The throttle works. The trim works. Any adjustment to the trim doesn't change the fact that it reaches 100 at the top end. I'll put it there. Throttle lock works on both of them. Good. Right. Now, let's try this.
Left engine.
There. Immediately, the right engine is locked out, and I've got control over the left engine. I can get it all nicely set up, tuned, do my endpoints and all the rest of it. Now, I'll come back here. That's the stick fully back. There's the trimmed position, of course. Let's say it was 90%. Minus 90% was the trim, nice idle position. Come back to here.
Engines.
Both engines running. Go to
right engine.
Left engine is locked out. Right engine's working. We're virtually there. All we need to do now is be able to adjust that back end trim point. You can't use the function curve for this because it will affect the whole thing. You'll never, if you set the function curve to -90, you're never going to get back beyond -90. Okay. So what do we do? Let's go back to both engines. Okay. what we're going to do is add in a little mix to give you the trim when you've disabled that engine, as it were. Now, if I remember rightly, we'd established, through running the model and trimming it, that minus 90% was the nice position of the idle, not minus 100%, which would be the stick right back with the trim at neutral. Pull the trim back from neutral, you'll go beyond minus 100%. Push the trim above neutral, you'll get a bit less than that. So we'll trim forward a bit. It's gone to minus 90%, so we need to add 10% back in just when we've disabled that engine. Fine tuning, free mixes, add from T1 to itself, to T1, advanced. The value will be, well, since the zero trim point with the stick fully back would be minus 100, and we've established by opening up the trim that we've got a nice idle at minus 90, the difference is 10%. So we need to deduct 10%. Funnily enough, not add it back in, I'm pretty sure. We'll find out in a second. You'd think that would take it to, minus 110. I think it doesn't. But see, we'll find out in a second. Okay, this is throttle 1, that's the left throttle, and that's disabled when we go to the right engine, which is switch up. So we'll go here, switch that.
Right engine.
There we go, thank you. Okay.
Both engines.
Let's have a look at our curve. Okay, we're on both engines. I'll open up the throttle a bit. Let's switch to right-hand engine.
Right engine.
There we go. I told you, minus 100 minus 10 should take you to minus 110, but it doesn't. It adds it on and it goes to 90. See, I do know what I'm doing after all. So when we're switched
Both
to
engines. Right engine.
right engine, the right engine throttle works, comes back to an idle at 90. The left engine is now locked at an idle setting of 90. What about the throttle cut? See, that doesn't affect it now, but all you have to do is switch back to both engines and your throttle cut switch works. Okay, so what do we need to do now? We just say okay to that, add one more, and this time to lock T2 into place. Remember, I'm doing minus 10, but if you found that your output position with the a nice idle is minus 85, then you would put a minus 15 in here. However, if you found that the trim or the output position with trim at a nice idle was minus 107, then you would put plus 7 in here. Okie doke. 10. Come along to here. Notice incidentally that of course we've got an independent value for each engine, so if you find one engine just needs a little bit of a tickle more than the other, you could just adjust it here. Anyway, the switch, this is for when the right hand engine is being controlled. So we want to lock out the left hand engine in this case, so we'll move that.
Left engine.
Okay, say okay to that.
Both engines.
Right, the big final test. Switches in both engines, throttle works, trim works, trim only affects at the bottom end, not at the top end, throttle lock works. Right, number 5's the left engine, number 7 is the left engine, minus 90% is the idle position. Let's check it out.
Left engine.
Lovely. So the right engine has locked at idle, the left engine is under our control. We come back to both
engines.
Now we'll switch over to the right engine, so it should lock the left-hand engine at minus 90.
Right engine.
There we go. So left engine's now locked at idle. Do that, and we can come back to both
engines.
and we're finished for the day. So we throttle cut. Super duper. I'm just wondering if the mix I left in from the other one would still work. Lo and behold, it does. Look at that. Hey, so I'm switch at both engines. But if you remember, I used this switch in the previous version where we're using the P6 side slider to control the engine. I'll do that. I'll switch that mix back on, and there you go. Wow. I can still completely control the left throttle. Wonderful. All those methods, it all adds up. There we go. So I hope that's been a big help to some of you who are trying to deal with twin piston engines. With electrics, it's much easier. You can just basically have one throttle function and output to, add on as many servos as you like as controllers. But the piston engines give you a lot more to think about. So I hope that's been a great help to some of you. Bye for now.